Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Sheila Litzer, happy to be your host today, joined by my trusted colleague, Vern Schellinger, to help you with all things job search strategy. Last week we had a very robust conversation about interviewing. Ty, I'm so sorry you missed it. It was pretty deep and pretty robust. I should get that. I should send you specifically the link for that. The recording is was really like the whole time we were just interviewing. So wanted to actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about networking a little bit. Vern and I were just having a conversation because that is, I mean, I do a lot of networking too, but that's actually Vern's specialty in his coaching practice and in his company called in Context Count. I was thinking about a different group. and And Vern, do you want to go ahead and I ask you to do this every once in a while. Do you want to go ahead and share a tip or two on good networking strategies?
Well, again, the tip that I can share the most, and I think is so important, is there are a lot of myths and a lot of things that hold people back from networking. Especially so for job seekers. Oh, it seems like I'm begging for a job, and that holds people back from actually getting involved in networking while they need a job. I don't think it's a problem with this group, knowing how much you've been attending these sessions. So I say this over and over again, but networking is about teaching and giving. And so it's and again, especially in the job search, you've got to be communicating to other people who you are and what you're all about. Your expertise, your skills, the type of position you're looking for, and you've got to do that in the appropriate way. You can't just start a 10-minute monologue with somebody that's going to turn them off. So it's listening for the cues, what we call conversational cues. So when somebody says, "What do you do?" What is your specific answer to that in your situation right now? And the what do you do really should be something about a skill, a competency, an area that you're really good at, and then an example of how you use that skill. And you can make that 2-sentence response very easily. And the key, though, is to practice, so it becomes completely conversational for you. It's almost like answering your name. Somebody said, "What's your name?" So I'll give you my personal example. Okay, so if you ask me what do I do, the typical response that people give is their title, their company, their industry, some professional designation. I'm the president and CEO of Context Count. That would be a typical response. If somebody asks me what I do, what we call the best test answer, the first sentence is something you do best. Second sentence is something, an example, a testimonial of when you did that. So my answer to what do you do is I teach people the skills and behaviors of networking to help them build trust-based, mutually beneficial relationships. I recently completed a program with the MBA students at George Washington University. They said the program literally changed their lives. So I can say that as easily as my name, but I've said it hundreds and hundreds of times. Okay. And so it's a way that it actually helps engage the other person rather than saying, I'm the president and CEO of Context Count. Okay. The other person saying, what do I do with that? If you give a really insightful best test answer, that actually it enables or engages the other person to ask a question. And when they do ask a question, now you're able to communicate a little bit more about yourself. The teaching and giving, however, is you've got to remember that it's not a one-way street. So while you'll be communicating your expertise, teaching them a little bit about you, at some point, you've got to say, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's what's on, what's happening in your world today. And when you get into those conversations, especially with someone you don't know, you've got to think about the questions you're asking. If you ask questions that are broad and very, broad and closed end type questions, people have trouble, engaging that in the beginning. So thinking about open-ended questions to get them to talk a little bit about themselves, and then listening to what they're saying, so that you can ask them questions, maybe think of a way, based on what they're saying, think of a way that you might be able to give something back to them in the moment. It might be an article, it might be an introduction to another person, but don't put the pressure on yourself to think that you have to give in that moment. I mean, it may be a week later, it may be 3 months later before you give back to this person in some way. So that's just something to keep in mind, and it does take practice and effort to really kind of hone those types of conversational skills to make it feel very natural for you to say them, and very natural to engage in the conversations. But the more you do that, you begin over time, if you have more than one conversation over time, you really do start to build a mutually beneficial relationship, one that's based on trust. And those are the most important relationships in your network. It's what we call it at Contacts Count advocates, people who will send opportunities your way, people who know you well enough to connect you to the right people, people who help you solve problems, and you're doing the same for them.
Okay. Vern, do you want to give us that's okay. Do you want to give us an example of one of those open-ended questions that people can ask?
Sure. One of the open-ended questions, and again, there's so many different contexts, and you've got to be thinking about the context you're in. So, and so these are also great questions for interviews, open-ended questions to the interviewer. So in Ty's world, it's customer relations, customer, expertise. So what are some of the key areas of focus for you in your company related to customer service, customer quality? Tell me about what a typical day looks like for you.
What are some of the challenges that your organization
faces
with its customers, right? Or in Ty's case, I know that you're going for members, right? For an association, right? So what are some of the typical member challenges, and how can someone like me better service your members, right? So open-ended questions that get to the pain points of whatever the employer is facing, right? You always want to find the pain points, because you're going to be in a position to help them solve their challenges. That's why they hire you, right? Is to solve problems, but you got to know the problems that you're going to be solving. Because it's really not about your solutions, it's about their problems. Let me just say that again. It's not about your solutions, it's about their problems. Meaning, it's not just about your skill set. It's not just about your experience. It's not just about your resume. It's not just about I can do. Yes, you can. You're great. Your superpowers, you got all that stuff. But it's really about what are the problems that they need you to solve specifically. So that's a good tip, not only for networking, but for your interviews. When you're thinking about the questions to ask an employer at the end, or even during the conversation, what is it? What's the proverbial, what's keeping you up at night? Okay. That's why they're not hiring you for their health, right? And they're not hiring you for your paycheck. I mean, it's good for you to get a paycheck. You got to eat, right? But they're hiring you for their business needs. What are their business needs? Why this position? What are they looking for? What are the challenges you need to address? What are they looking for? Who's going to make the biggest difference? What expectations do they have of you in the first 3 months, 6 months, a year? What does success look like in this role? All of those kinds of questions will help you get at why them, why now? Right? It's all about, in the interview, it's all about them. Now, They should make the interview in part about you, for sure. They need to know what's important to you. I mean, a lot of people unfortunately don't do that, but ask those questions. They should ask what's important to you. You know, what skills do you want to use? All of those things will culture fit. They should address your side. But from your perspective, you got to be all about them. Okay. To let them know that you are the person potentially to help them fulfill their business challenges, whatever they are. And when I say business, I mean organizational, because it could be a nonprofit, it could be government, whatever. But make sure that you understand what their pain points are.
And when you're networking with people in general to help you find a potential job or a lead or an introduction to somebody, again, your questions for them are, again, communicating your expertise in the hopes that they'll be able to give back to you in some way. In other words, they're able to say, well, I know somebody in this field who, who's been in this field a long time, and would you like to, have an informational interview with this person? Okay, if they can do that for you, that's a plus in your networking. Now you're going to get to have an informational interview with somebody who's an expert in that field, and recognize every time you're introduced to somebody, the potential exists. You're now potentially being able to tap into their network. So if this person's an expert in that particular field, obviously they know people who are in that field. They may know people who are hiring in that field. So you just never know where, the network is going to take you to, and the people you're going to meet as you go along, provided you're, consistently out there trying to meet and talk to people, and again, teach them about who you are and learn about who they are.
And I want to just kind of jump off of that for a second and just pivot the networking into a slightly different area. And this is a tip that I will give my coaching clients sometimes. And I think it's just important for everybody to be thoughtful about this. If you have been in transition for any length of time and you are looking for income, right? Quicker income. It is perfectly acceptable for you in your networking to let people know, presuming this is true for you, okay? It is perfectly acceptable for you to let people know that you are open to contract work, possibly part-time work, what we call gig work, right? Anything that has to do with what we call being part of the flexible workforce. A lot of employers may not have headcount for a full-time employee, but a lot of them have project work, very, very available project work. And when you are networking, if you're open to this, I would highly recommend that you let them know that you are available for that project type of work, whatever that looks like. Maybe you can use your writing skills or your finance skills or project management skills or report writing or whatever, even if it's entry-level things, just to earn a couple of dollars for those of you who need that, perfectly fine. And if you were even thinking about starting your own business, you could let them know that too, depending upon what that is, and let them know that you are available for other things in addition to W-2. Sometimes people say, oh, really? Well, we've got this little project going on. Could you lend a hand? Could you do blah, blah, blah? You can let them know some of the skill sets that you have, and you never know. You could earn income for a week, a month, 6 months, what have you, just to kind of get something going on the side while you're continuing to do your job search. So please feel free to open yourselves up to that, because that could be really helpful for a couple extra dollars. Karen?
The other, again, the other thing, and I've always emphasized this when we talk about volunteering, when you do that, you're actually able to demonstrate some of your skills. Now, again, Shira said it might be a small project, so you're not going to be able to do a whole bunch of things, but you can certainly demonstrate, hitting due dates, doing a quality job, coming up with new ideas and ways to change this process, whatever it is. The other individuals that you're working with are actually getting to see your skill levels in lots of different ways.
And on top of that, if you actually are interviewing for a role, you can say that if you're in transition, you are available for this, you can say that you're open to a temporary assignment. You're open to filling in while they're doing their search, right? To just sort of, be there. And that's a kind of a working interview. You never know. It could be that you do a fabulous job and you end up being the person that they want to hire because they're actually seeing you in the job. So you can present yourself as a candidate for that if again, if you're in transition and it works for you. Karen.
Okay, good. Thank you. Potential opportunity with a company that I used to work for a year or so ago. I love them. They love me. They were contract. They lost the contract way back when. So I went elsewhere, connected with them over this last week. And one of the guys who was my peer before said, you know, I'm so overloaded. And I said, well, you know, do you need some help? And he said, well, yeah, but the role is one down from typically what I do. So on my resume, if I put it there, it would be a step down from typically what I do. It would be like a 3-month. He said I could use it for 3 months. That's when the contract ends. So I thought to myself, well, I'd love to work with them again, you know, but it's a step down. So I would not that the work is not gratifying. I could certainly do it. But the issue is on the resume, it would show that I like took a step down.
Well,
How do you
not
explain that?
necessarily, because it's just a 3-month assignment, correct?
Correct.
So you wouldn't even have to put the title in that regard. You can just say that you worked for such and such a company and in this kind of a role. So,
Like,
you know,
like I was a consultant
exactly,
or something.
project management consultant or project management contractor or whatever it is.
Okay.
It's not
okay.
really a title. It's just a gig job. That makes sense?
Okay.
Doesn't-
Okay. Yeah. Because I wanted to be able to explain it in the future. Well,
Yeah.
you were a PM, now you're an analyst. So
No,
just
no,
talk
no.
about it.
Yeah, because it was really about the fact that you were a contractor or a consultant, not your title, because it's not really a title if it's just a temporary kind of
Okay. A consultant to the project manager in this. Okay. Thank you.
something like that. Yeah.
It
And you
helps,
can
it helps.
literally, you can in parens, you can say 3-month contract or 3-month assignment or something like that. Yeah, it's good. It's a really good question. And then another point about just to harken back on networking, and I'm going to make this a networking / interviewing, you know, kind of a tip. And it's something that I brought up last time, but want to bring it up again. And that has to do with how you share stories about your work experience. What I mean by that is this. Whether the question has to do with why did you leave your last employer, or whether the question has to do with any sort of challenges that you faced in your job. Maybe the questions phrase something like, hey, describe a time when you made a mistake, or a time when things just didn't go right and how you handle it. Here's a big, huge tip, and I need everybody to listen up to this. Okay, please. And please don't think, oh, I'm talking about somebody else, because everybody has the potential to do this inadvertently. Super hugely important. Ready? Never, ever, ever throw your colleagues under the bus. I'm letting that hang in the air. Never, ever, ever throw your colleagues under the bus. Take ownership of your mistakes. Take ownership of when things didn't go right. Anytime. So do not lay blame. Do not point fingers. Do not say, oh, but my colleague didn't this and they did. Be humble, be vulnerable, be authentic. Say, look, this situation didn't go quite right. Here was my part in that. Okay. Very, very, very important tip. And I'm saying this because of feedback I've heard from people. You got to make sure that you take ownership and you take accountability. It will hold you in very good stead with the employer on the positive side, because it's going to show your humility, and people are looking for humility. You might think that they're looking for uber confidence. Yes, of course, they need you to be confident. Don't get me wrong. But what they don't want is any sense of arrogance. What they don't want is you saying like, oh, well, I'm never wrong. Now, of course, you're never going to say that. But anytime you possibly throw somebody under the bus, that is what you're saying, right? But when you take accountability and be authentic and be humble and be vulnerable, like, wow, he's a real person. She's a real person. Okay. So I need to emphasize this to everybody, because it's very easy to do that when we're not even thinking. Why? Because jobs have a lot of emotion attached to them. You were not a robot, right? You had relationships, there were political situations, whatever happened, you left the job. And when you're looking back on the job, whether it has to do with your reason for leaving, whether it has to do with situations that didn't go right, it's very, very easy to get into an emotional place and forget that we're not supposed to throw people under the bus. We forget that because we're just talking, right? Oh, this is the situation that happened. And when your emotions sort of seep through, what happens is we get a little bit like, yeah, but it was really their fault. Okay. Mm-mm. Take accountability for it. And I don't just mean put lipstick on you, on lipstick on opinion. I don't mean that. I don't mean play pretend. I mean, truly take accountability for your side of whatever it was. Be very reflective. And then in the interview, showcase that. Is everybody nodding their head? Everybody get me? Okay. Very important to have. Okay. Sally, then Stephen, then Ty.
There we go. Okay. It was very funny that you're bringing this up today, because it is this morning that I just woke up and I'm so angry at some people that I just want to blame them. And I want to write letters to them saying, you know, what you did has really cost me my job and cost me my career. And I know not to do that. So, Shira, I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, because it made me readjust my thought process this morning. But I really woke up in a really bad mood, and I needed to tell somebody that. So
wow. Well, so let me take it one more step. Okay. Right, here we go. Here's the word: forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, right? Forgiveness is given to people who don't deserve it, which, by the way, is all of us. Hello, all of us. Okay? Every one of us.
Yeah.
We don't deserve it. Okay.
Yes.
But this is so important, because when we carry the weight of unforgiveness, it's hurting us. It's not hurting the other person. Hurt people hurt people. People do not wake up in the morning and want to make your life difficult. They just don't. People do inadvertent things. People trip over themselves. People say what they don't mean to say, all that stuff, right? And we never know the unintended consequences of our actions. It is absolutely our job to lay them down before God and say, God, I forgive them. Jesus, you forgave me. I'm going to forgive other people. Okay. So, and I know you know that, Sally, right?
Yes.
I mean, we all know it, but we all need reminders. We all do. And I just want to bless you, Sally, and thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that. You are sharing all of our story here. We're all the same. Okay. Stuff happens in our lives. And I just want to encourage you that this is a beautiful time for you to just lay them down, forgive them, whatever it was that happened, right? What can you learn from this situation? What good can come out of this situation? You never know. Maybe because all this stuff happened and you're in the transition now, this next opportunity that you have is you only would have gotten it had you only because you left, right? Only because these other things. You never know how God's going to work this out for good, right? So thank you for sharing your heart. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stephen.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand Sally's kind of thought with that. And I think as we look at it even objectively, we're all people. We're going to have an emotive reaction, whether it's overt or whether it's internal. And I guess I look at it less as forgiveness as more of a, for me, it takes a lot of emotion to carry that kind of pain and anger and all those things that are related to the situation with you, or to, have the feelings of being really angry with somebody about situations that come up. And that's at a cost. And I tell myself, I don't have the emotional bandwidth I want to spend on that. I would much rather spend it over here in this endeavor, or helping somebody else do this, or, whatever those situations are. So historically for me, I've taken a lot of years to get there, but I tend to take that approach and go from there. But I wanted to comment on your topic that, not throwing people under the bus, having those kind of conversations. You will almost always, in one way, shape, or form, get where are you weakest? What are, some of your, improved qualities and things, qualities you need to improve on and things like that. And as much as you've got those star stories in there about successes, being able to share that kind of a story in hey, it really didn't go the way we wanted it to. We made these mistakes. We failed. Also shows two things when you have that story kind of very professionally put out, is that you're taking accountability for the things that you were party to, whether completely responsible or not, and that you can see that there's a process by which you're always going to be learning, and the prospective employer or, engagement can also see that you're on that plane as well. It's the emotional intelligence piece of saying, we're not perfect. We should be improving our craft and trade all the time, whatever that is, and that there is more to learn. And by that learning and sharing and all those pieces, we're able to help that business or that association succeed. So for me, again, a lot of years, a lot of different experiences, many good, some not so good, that brought me to that. So
Thank you for sharing that, Stephen. Appreciate your thought there. Ty.
One thing that I started to work into my interview process is taking ownership of words, especially in customer service, customer support. Somebody calls, I tell the interviewer, well, this is the situation. I take ownership and tell the customer, I will handle this for you. I think that's true of any situation that you're in. If you can show the interviewer that you're going to take control of the situation and accomplish the goal that's needed, that goes hand in hand with accountability. I think that we talked about, and what Steve was saying, I agree 100% what he's saying. It's not so much that it happened, but how did you handle it? And they're also looking at what's your interaction with your coworkers. Of course, throwing your coworkers underneath the bus is definitely not the way to go. But how did you handle it? How did you take control of the situation or navigate through the situation?
Yeah, and the humility, right? Piece of it. Like, especially when you can say, look, I think I misstepped, in this area. This is what happened. And I want to take, responsibility for it. And this is what I learned from it, right? That's a really smart thing to talk about, because that's what people are looking for. Are you a continuous learner? Are you a fail up, fail forward kind of a person, right? Those are the kinds of soft skills or qualities that employers are looking for in the interview. It could be said that your resume, in part, other than your networking, okay, but some could say that your resume, the skills on your resume gets you the interview, but who you are gets you the job. Who you are gets you the job. Your background, your experience, your skill sets takes you just so far in the interview. Yes, I'm qualified. Yes, I've been there. Yes, I've done that. Yes, I have a t-shirt. Okay, fine. But when you sit in that interview seat and there's a half a dozen other candidates who are alongside you, who are all qualified in one way, shape, or form, who you are often is what sets you apart. Now, could it be, and has it happened, and I know it as a recruiter, like all the time, that there are two finalist candidates, they're both equally qualified, and great personalities and all that. And one person has the direct industry experience and the other one doesn't, and then they get the job. Yes, I mean, absolutely that happens when it comes right down to it. So yes, there absolutely are certain skills that you may not have or industry experience, and that might be the reason why you didn't get the job. But I will tell you that culture fit is huge. Who you're being in that interview is huge. In fact, I have an employer right now who we're two finalist candidates, and he's taking them each to lunch with the whole team to see who they are, just to talk about stuff, just personal banter, whatever, just to see, are they going to fit in, right? Beyond, because they're both extremely qualified. So I just mentioned that to you because how you're showing up, your body language, of course, with Zoom, it's all the more difficult because you've got a little square, right, to show your whole personality. Your body language, your tone of voice, again, how you represent yourself, the humility factor, the confidence factor, your ethics, your worldview, your sort of who you're showing up as, how much you show, how well you're going to fit within their culture matters. You can ask them questions about their overall cultural values. You can also ask them questions about the team, the department that you're going to be working in. What's the nature of that team? What's the if you will, the persona of that team? How does that team interact with each other? What kind of teammate are they looking for right now? Which, by the way, changes. I'll give you an example. There was a search I was doing a couple of years ago, whenever it was, I forget. And in this particular case, they had a very, very strong person in the organization, very strong personality. And the hiring manager kind of figured out that the person that she needed to hire under her, if she hired somebody who was kind of equally that, there could be a lot of conflict. So she decided to go for somebody whose personality was a little more mellow, a little bit more sort of flexible, relatable. In that particular case, that made sense. Nothing against the person who had the very strong personality, but in that situation for that cultural dynamic just wouldn't have worked. Okay. And so please understand that if ever you are given the feedback that you weren't the right culture fit or whatever, it may have nothing to do with you personally, but just what are the team dynamics that they're facing right now, and who do they need right now on that team? Okay. So a lot of different variables here. What you need to do is be your authentic self and really showcase your qualities, your attributes, who you're being. Again, what kind of cultural values you have, what have you, to see, is it going to be the right fit? And by the way, you don't want the wrong fit either. So if they make a determination that you're not necessarily the right culture fit, that could be a blessing in disguise. Because guess what? Maybe you would have gotten there and it would have been the wrong fit for you. And you would have been like, whoa, so they're actually doing you a favor in making that decision for you because they know the team dynamics. And by the way, they're not going to throw people under the bus, right? That's not their job to sit in the interview and go, well, Susie's like this and Frank is like, no, they know in their mind sort of what the dynamics are to say, yeah, this is going to be the right fit or it's not. All right. So you can trust them that hopefully they're going to be looking out for both you and for them. Okay. So sorry, Vern.
Well, I was just going to say, I'll give you a real life example of what we're talking about. When I moved from Boston to Maryland a long time ago, I accepted a job with a major corporation after they had done searches, and they really wanted the HR team to say thumbs up, and the HR team kept saying thumb downs to all these other candidates. And I guess I was the first candidate where they said thumbs up. And so I was hired, and the person I reported to was out of New York, and she was absolutely the worst boss I had ever worked with. And within a year, I was fired. And so now I had worked for Dunkin' Donuts for 25 years. I take my first job, and less than a year, I'm fired. And now I'm looking for another job. And so obviously on my resume, the interviewers are asking me, well, what happened here? And I really, to Sally's point, really wanted to throw this person under the bus. I mean, absolutely the worst boss I've ever worked for. And she and I, just from almost day one, the recruiting process was wonderful, but day one on the job, we started to lock horns, and it was that way for the whole year, which I understood why it didn't work out. But again, in that interview, I know I had to explain that in a way, and basically what I said is what I just said to you. I said, we thought this was going to be a good match. It wasn't. I tried to do my best to make this work, and at the end of the day, we parted ways, and left it at that. And I ended up getting that job because I think it was the other stuff that I said in the interview that convinced them. But boy, it's I hear you, Sally. It was just the worst situation that I've ever been in. So no matter how low you go, you can, and since then I think I've rebounded okay. So
Thanks, Vern. Ty?
Yeah.
A question in terms of a lot of times get the question, tell me about yourself. And would an approach be come out and say like, well, you turn the camera on, you're expecting to see some younger guy, I'm an older guy, but this is what I bring to the table, da 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 da. Is that an acceptable approach, acknowledging that right away?
Say that one more time.
Basically, the first question out of the blocks is, tell me about yourself.
Right.
And you say, well, when you turn your camera on, you probably were expecting to see a younger person.
Oh, I see. Well,
but I'm older, and this is what I bring to the table.
I wouldn't start with that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because that's already kind of going into sort of not a negative, but yeah, I wouldn't overcome the objection quite then. I mean, you could invoke for comment at some point, but I wouldn't start with that. But I would absolutely talk about when people do the tell me about yourself question, they're asking why you, why us, why now? Why you, why us, why now? So it's going to be a response that talks through, your passion, in your case, in your passion for customer service, like, that you came from a career, was in communications, and You had this revelation, you know, in the recent years that really customer service is your passion. And you are, you know, so excited to, you know, be here to explore this opportunity where you can contribute your ABC skills, that kind of thing. So I would absolutely go first into who you are and what you're looking for and why this role could be right for you. Now, as you go down the interview, okay, a little bit, you know, when you start talking about culture, anything like that, you can say with sort of tongue in cheek, hey, you know, you might have been expecting somebody a little bit, you know, earlier in their career. You don't have to talk about age, you know, earlier in their career. Please know that I have intentionally, you know, made this switch at this stage of my career. Again, don't use the term age, use the term career. Stage of career, not age of age. Okay, stage of career. I've intentionally made this shift at this stage of career because I've had a kind of a life epiphany. All right. And I'm no longer, you know, moving in the communications direction. I'm moving in the customer service direction. And frankly, I love this level, this customer service rep level. I know it seems like I'm taking a huge step back, but that is by intention. Please know that. That's all. So I wouldn't address age. Just you can address stage of career and you've made a kind of a life shift.
Okay. In that light, I've recently interviewed with organizations that are big on diversity, DEI, and that is there any space for that in terms
There
of
is a
age?
space for that. You can, if you want to address that, you can say, you know, instead of again using the word age, you can say, you know, I bring some generational diversity to your team. Generation is a good way to use that, to frame that.
Thank you.
You could say that generational diversity. It's a nice phrase.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, no, really not in the question mode, although now I've got another phrase in my tool bag with generational diversity. I hadn't thought of that. But what I was going to say is I love the fact that you've been able to work in a Henry Ford story again this week. So that really keeping that front of mind to say that kind of intangible choice factor of what you bring to the table and having that come out very organically as part of a conversation is really important. So thanks.
Yeah, sure. For those who weren't on the call last week, that what Steve's referring to is I had read this little article that Steve had also seen, you know, had heard this story years ago, that apparently Henry Ford took a couple of candidates out to lunch, 2 finalist candidates. But what he did is he brought don't ask me why he did this, but he took them to the lunch together. Okay. I guess maybe one did that at that time of life. I don't know. We don't do that today. And he walked out of the restaurant and he said to the one, you're hired. And he said to the one, we're not going to be moving forward. Of course, the one that he dismissed said, Mr. Ford, with all due respect, I don't understand. We're both equally qualified candidates. But we never talked about the job. We never talked about skills. Why are you, what happened? And Ford said to the individual, well, your colleague here tried his steak before he put salt on it, and you put salt on your steak before you tried it. And he says, I like people who actually learn what's going on before they innovate, right? Sort of like figure things out before they try new things. And number 2, more importantly, he said, your colleague was very kind to the waiters, was gracious to them. So you were only kind to me, and you dismissed the waiters. And he says, and I want leaders who are gracious and compassionate and are servant oriented to other people. Okay. So basically these 2 people showed who they were in that lunch, and Ford picked up on that. Right. So that's kind of the point, is like, who are you being? Not just what are you doing, is what employers are looking for. Ty?
In a recent interview and recent interviews in customer service, customer support, when I'm describing what I want to do or the company, one thing, that phrase I've used is, you know, I like to put smiles on faces of customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's great. It's a great little phrase. That's right. Good. All right. So questions. This is what we normally do here is have people ask questions. Vern and I have been opining on different topics here, but we are happy to entertain any job search question you have. Or if there's another topic you want to bring up, Ty? and then Karen.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment about networking, a recent experience. My wife knew somebody in a company. She contacted them. The person hand delivered my resume. I recently had 2 interviews in that company.
Nice.
So networking does work.
And I'm
Mhm.
telling you, and your wife, who was this relationship to your wife? How did she know this person?
She had 2. Wow, she knew this person from church, and the other person actually was a vendor where she works at.
This is what the reason why I asked that it wasn't about like who the person was. I'm talking, you just answered my point, or addressed my point, which is these contacts could be any part of your life. Any part of your life. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be somebody you meet in the grocery store. I got a client once who was my aerobics teacher. Not kidding, right? Like, to your point, I got 2 new clients from church just recently, right? Do 2 different little groups that I'm in, and 2 people just said, hey, they found out what I did, and they're like, hey, can I work with you? And not that I was there for that reason, but it just, right? People never know. You never know, when you're going to be the right person for somebody that's in your network at that moment. So let everybody know what you are looking for. Everybody that you can think of, right? And especially people who know what you do, who get what you do and are close to you, but it could be anybody. Vern?
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on that because within the context count 8 competencies, we have a competency called envision your ideal network. And we identify the fact that everyone has 4 distinct networks. The first network you have is the people that you work with day in and day out. Now, they may be employees, they may be vendors, they may be consultants, but the people that, in whatever job you're doing, these are the people you interact with almost daily, weekly, to get your work done. If you're in an organization, a larger organization, you have an organizational network, because there might be people in the organization, if it's 500 or 1,000 employees, that you've never even met, you've never even talked to, but you can, because you have the common bond of the organization, you can certainly have lunch with them, introduce yourself. And for people that aren't in organizations, if you're an independent consultant, it's the people, it's the other consultants, it's the other professional people that that help you get your work done. You have a professional network, which is your field of expertise, and then you have your family, friends, and neighbors. And that particular network is the network that we find most people under leverage. They don't think about that in terms of networking and job search. And as to Ty's point and Shira's comment, that can be a very powerful part of your job search process, making sure all of those people know who you are, what you're looking for. So
yeah, we had a story we like to share here. We started this HMM group in August of 2020, middle of pandemic. And we had a job seeker, like something like yourself, who was on it for a long time. Vern, what was her name again? Is it Melissa?
Melissa, yeah.
Melissa. Not the Melissa that got you to me. The person with the jazz club. What was her? Remember her name? Anyway, there was so you'll know what I'm talking about in a second. So there was an individual, and she was, long-term transition. Anyway, so she tells that she gets a job, and she shares her job search, her journey on this call. And she basically said, and Vern knows the detail much better, because I think she called Vern afterwards and told him the whole story. But the bottom line is that she was relocated. She lived in Michigan, and she was, I guess, she was visiting the DC area or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was visiting some friends, and there was a whole situation. But the bottom line is this: she ends up going to I think it was a jazz club with her friends, and it was really great, really great band. And she just decides, I guess, to go up to the band leader and say hello and thank them and what have you. And one thing leads to another. And in the course of the conversation with the band leader, band guy says to her, "And why are you here?" I don't know, just getting personal, right? Why are you here? Whatever. She says, "Oh yeah, I'm just here, I'm visiting Michigan, and I'm, I don't know, looking for a job or something." "Oh, what kind of job are you looking for?" And she mentions, I forget what it was, office manager, this and that.
Yeah. Well, I think the band member said, "Well, do you know anything about accounting or QuickBooks?" She said, "Yeah, I'm an expert in QuickBooks."
Right. And the guy says, "Well, the band stuff is just my gig, but in my day job, I run a medical practice." Would you be open to this? She gets an interview, she gets the job. Okay. Like, you don't know. You just don't
Yeah.
know who you're going to meet. So let
And-
everybody
and-
know what you're doing.
And let me tag on to that. I talked about teaching and giving, right? And her name was Sandy. Now I remember the story because this was really classic, because, you know, it's just Sandy was leaving the restaurant, and she said, I really need to go back and thank the band because I really did enjoy it. Because she I know the story. She was going to leave with her friend because her friend wasn't feeling good. And they were walking out, and the band convinced her to stay. And so Sandy stayed and heard another thing, and then she really did have to leave. And she said, I need to go thank them. That was a simple give to the band. She wanted to thank them for, you know, encouraging her to stay. She really enjoyed herself. They were great. So that simple give led to this conversation about, you know, well, where are you from, and so forth and so on. And she ended up getting a job.
So just be present to the moment, let people know what you're doing. And to Vern's point, be a giver, right? Be a go-giver. Thank people, help people, connect people, right? You put yourself out there to be of service to other people just because it's the right thing to do. And right, it can come back. Karen and then Bridget.
I've got three things to say. I love your go giver. You've said it before. I've heard it in these other seminars. And I said that to a recruiter. He and I were having a conversation at the end. How can I help you? He was so taken aback. I think it impressed him so that he put my resume forward to a situation at a higher level that I was aiming for. It hasn't come to fruition yet. If the job's going to be in next year, but go giver. Great.
So it's a book, by the way. I'm putting it in the
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat. Lovely book.
Vern, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned 4 different networks. You said people I work with daily, organizational networks / professional networks, family, friends, and neighbors. That was 3. Was there one I was missing?
But yeah, the one is WorkNet. Second is organizational net. And the organizational net is other people. Typically, this was when you think of a large organization, you've got hundreds of other people who have a lot in common with you. They work for the same organization and so forth and so on. And then your professional net is a separate net. In other words, so Shira and I, we might belong to the Society of Human Resource Management. That's our, you know, those are all professionals who are in HR, or the Association for Talent Development. Those are all professionals in learning and development. There's a networking group across the country called the Financial Executives Networking Group. So that's a professional networking group of people who are in finance. And then there's your family and friends.
Okay.
So yeah, so what Vern is talking about is what we call the association community. There are a few of us on this call who know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Professionally, but for those of you who are not part of the association world, it's a thing. Membership organizations are there to help either professionals network with each other, or industries, like companies who are part of industries to network with each other. And I know, Karen, you have your PMP, right? Right. So you might. So are you a member of PMI?
Oh, I've been yes, and also the NC North Carolina in the Raleigh-Durham North Carolina Project Management Institute over they had 4,200 members prior to the lockdown. Lost some, so they're at about 3,800 right now.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of
so that's kind of the point, right? So most associations have a national organization. Some of them, not all of them, some of them have either local chapters or regional chapters.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to find an association that's either part of your profession or part of your industry, I'm not kidding you. You could literally just Google, either association of, or national association of, or society of, and then pop in whatever it is that you do. Accounting, human resources, international development, whatever industry you're part of, likely there is an association for you, or maybe multiple associations, because that's what often happens. Is there's usually like a mothership, some sort of big, like the National Education Association or American Medical Association, all these little subgroups for all the little specialty practices in that industry or in that profession. So likely there's one, And then there might
D-
even be a local chapter. And if there's a local chapter, you can network.
DC, it's prevalent. I mean, you've got an
Well, we've
association
got,
for
and
everyone.
on every street corner. In fact, if
Point.
you are trying to career change, that's a great way to do that too. I recently helped a coaching client, because I do career coaching. Recently helped a coaching client do that. She was trying to, figure out she's a teacher, and a lot of teachers, well, unfortunately, want to leave teaching. And so a very natural next step for them often is training, right? To go into corporate training, classroom training, whatever. And so I said, hey, let's look at the what Vern mentioned, ATD, the Association of Talent Development, and she's in Chicago. And I'm like, there must be a Chicago chapter. And sure enough, there is, right? And I'm like, hey, reach out to them, go to their events, let them know what you're doing, blah, 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 right? Go plug in to your professional network, and you can do that through an association.
And a lot of those associations, so for instance, the Association for Talent Development, most of the chapters also have job boards.
Yeah.
So they will get listings of jobs from, members of that chapter. We're looking for, a customer service relations person. We're looking for a training manager. I mean, so they post jobs. So there's jobs right in the field that your profession is in. So
Exactly. Great. All right, Bridget.
All right. Hi, good morning. Great conversations. I actually took a call from a job recruiter while we were here. I had a question in regards to training and volunteering and references. That's what it's about, basically. Recently, I've been working on just updating my skills, making sure I'm on top of them. So for instance, I took this LinkedIn course on GitLab, and I would like to kind of execute that. And so I'm trying to figure out how to reach organizations to say, hey, if you need help with GitLab, for instance, a skill that I've done or just recently worked on, I can offer you help, and I'm willing to do it for free at this point in time. So I'm trying to find out how I can volunteer when I'm learning something, a new skill, and execute that.
Well, depending on what the skills, and I apologize that I'm not familiar with the skill that you just mentioned. What is
Sure.
it?
It's basically a web development version control system. It's a version control system for coding. So at this point, I've been doing a Drupal boot camp, which is Drupal's a content management system similar to WordPress.
In that particular, I was going to give a different piece of advice.
Sure.
In your particular case, in the tech community,
Mhm.
I would actually recommend that you hook up with on Meetup. Okay, I would go find communities of practice in that space and say, hey, folks, I am looking to build up my skill set here. Do your companies have a project I can work on? Is there an open source or some sort of portal that I can do some projects for folks for free just to build my skills up? In the tech community, that's a very specific thing. And people might have some advice for you, okay, as to how you can build your skills, showcase your skills, volunteer your skills, put it out there for the world to see, kind of a thing. Isn't it GitHub? Is that what you said? Isn't it GitHub that where you can
There's
put skills out there?
GitLab, GitHub. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would absolutely tap your tech community. For other people, non-techie people, I would recommend that you go the volunteer route. And Bridget, I wasn't recommending that for you because I don't know of a lot of nonprofits that are going to need that kind of skill set. Okay.
I know.
Right. Like that's just not your average nonprofit. So like, what is that? But for non-techie people, if you're trying to build your skills, I would recommend that if it's a traditional skill set, HR, accounting, writing, marketing, that kind of stuff, fundraising, of course, I would look for local nonprofits and say, hey, can I volunteer my time to offer you my skills so that I can also get some experience?
So you said Anya?
I apologize.
Excuse me, I know someone was about to ask. Anya, if you could put that in the chat. I think you mentioned
Anya?
It sounded like you said I can get you in touch with Anya.
No, I might, I
Nope, maybe
apologize
I said that wrong.
if I misspoke, sorry.
That's
Yeah, it
okay.
was just, Meetup, I was thinking Meetup.
Okay,
I would recommend you go to meetup.com,
okay,
which is actually
got it.
where I meet up too on this group.
Yeah.
Just go to
mhm.
Meetup and just type in, the skill set, Drupal or whatever, and just see if there
Oh,
are.
and go into those communities and then
Yes,
gotcha.
yes,
All right, awesome.
yes.
Bridget, one other thing, when you first started, you said you're trying to connect with organizations to, say, hey, I've got these skills and I'll volunteer.
Mhm.
Rather than connect with organizations, connect with people. You should be telling everybody in your network about
Okay.
what you just told us. And do they know anybody? Do they know any organizations that might need this particular skill? You can still try to connect with organizations. There's nothing wrong with that, but you probably, if you talk to individuals, the more individuals you let know that this is what I'd like to be doing, somewhere along the line, you may just, hit it right and say, yeah, my brother works for this company and they're looking actually for somebody to do this type of work. So,
Okay. And I probably shouldn't start with I mean, it's just like I'm training in this and I haven't, so I'm kind of like, I want to be careful not to, and this could be a bad thing. This might help with other people too, but I don't want to put myself in the position where I'm like making mistakes or, this is something I just learned. So should I present myself as, hey, I'm willing to volunteer or paid? And obviously we want to go for paid, but I mean, what
It
does
depends
it
on
make?
until you feel comfortable, right? You'll know when you feel
Mhm.
comfortable enough.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but when you feel
yeah,
like, yeah, I kind of got the hang of this,
yeah.
then
'Cause
at
I
that
want to
point
build.
I would offer it for fee. But for now, if you really, really feel like you're just learning and
Yeah.
you're just wobbly, I would go
Mhm.
to Meetup, like I said, ask other tech people, can I do a free project for you just to to test my wings on this?
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, Ty?
A lot of times in networking meetings, I'll ask, well, what can I do for you? And they'll say, well, nothing, but then I step back and I say, well, yeah, there is something. Let me share the networking groups that I'm involved in because everybody during their career at one point may need to go out and look for other opportunities. Let me share these. I'm surprised the number of people that do not know about the networking groups, do not know about this call, do not know about Career Network Ministry, and all the other ones listed on Share's website.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Like, unless you know, you don't know, right?
well, and so Ty, to your point, this is another, when we talk about give back, first of all, a lot of people say, well, what can I give? And we all have stuff to give. You just really need to think about that. And in your conversations with other people, again, it's about teaching and giving. So if the more questions you ask them and the more you learn about them, the greater likelihood something may pop up that's directly related to them. I mean, what you did is fine, Ty. That's a great way to give back if you can't come up with any other ways. But a lot of times, especially in an informational interview, you're asking, if somebody grants you an informational interview, you're asking them all these questions, they're giving you all this great advice. And then at the end, you says, is there anything I can do to help you? And of course, they basically say, no, there's nothing you can do to help me. But there probably is, but you don't know anything about them because it's been more of a one-way street. So
That's right.
whatever you can do to learn about them, maybe at the end of the interview, tell me just a little bit about what you do. And then maybe that might ring a bell or you can really target your give back to them. The networking one's a great example. That's a great way to do it, Ty.
Thank you.
So Joel and Alexandra, I noticed that you're new with us. Are there any questions that you have or comments or thoughts you want to contribute? You good? All right. Well, why don't we do this? Bridget, did you have another question or did you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't lower my hand.
No worries.
It was.
Just want to double check. So we do this every once in a while, but I think this might be another good time. I'd like to do a little bit of networking. Have you guys share with each other, right? What you're all about. So if you feel comfortable, I'm going to go around the room and have you share who you are, the kind of job that you're looking for. In other words, your profession. So Karen's case, project management, what have you. And if you have an industry, now you may not, But if you do, like Sally, you know, is in the association role, right, would say that. So what your profession is that you're going into, the job you're looking for, and if you have an industry sector, and then what a good lead for you would be, like you're looking for a lead into this kind of company or this kind of sector or that kind of thing. Okay. So let me tell you the order that you're on my Zoom call, my Zoom Hollywood Squares, so you can be prepared. So Karen is first, then Steve, Joel, Ty, Sally, Bridget, and Alexandra. Okay, that's how you guys appear for me. And if you feel comfortable, please raise your hand, or please share. And if you want to pass, that's fine too. But this is a good opportunity because remember, you never know who knows people. All right, Karen.
Good morning, everybody. Karen McCann, seasoned project manager, have a number of years of experience. I've held my PMP for 12 years. I'm a certified Agile Scrum Master, and I in 2020 earned what's called a CPMAI, Cognitive Project Manager for Artificial Intelligence. So that's kind of the high tech spaces where I play. I've actually had experience in developing machine learning projects, and my perfect connection would be somebody who's connected into, I'll say, higher end technologies, IoT, metaverse, those types of things. That'd be the perfect contact. Thank you.
I am Steve.
Oh, Steve, I apologize for stopping you there. As we go along, and I'm actually about to do this with Karen, as we go along, if you have a lead for that person, please just just raise your mic and just say, hey, so-and-so, I've got a lead for you. So Karen, my lead for you, her name is Jean Foster. If you wouldn't mind sending me a note, she plays in that world, and I'll share with you offline why that would be a good contact for you. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Steve?
Sure. Certainly. Stephen Dunn. I work in information technology, specifically support roles, systems engineering, administration, and more at the manager director level, both hands-on and strategic. I don't have a particular industry. I've been in both the association world as well as the private sector roles. Currently, really focusing on those opportunities which allow for really client, team, and staff growth. Right now, I'm just getting my pipeline in place. So any contacts or connections that are in the technology market specific to operational support would be most appreciated.
And Karen and Steve, I would recommend that you guys network offline. I know you're in slightly different parts of the world, but look, you still have a tech connection. So I think it would be good networking buddies.
We had started, I think, from a few weeks ago, and Karen's group for specifically focusing on tech folks has been kicking off. So that's been a really great asset as well. So.
Thank you, Shira. Steve, thank you. Just one other comment. What Steve's talking about is I put together a little group of like six people, high tech, IT, job search, and so we meet on Friday afternoons.
Fantastic. So that's good to know, Karen. I didn't know that. So if we have other IT people, we can send them your way. All right, Joel, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I mean, I know I haven't really said much. I've just been absorbing, taking it in, taking very diligent notes. Unfortunately, I recently got let go from an inside sales position. They just eliminated my position. But what I would love to get back to, what I really enjoyed the most with my career is that I was an enrollment advisor for several for-profit schools like ITT, Fortis, and my best was University of Phoenix. And inevitably, I would love to take some of those skills and do it for a non-profit school, because I really enjoy the interaction with the students, helping them to obtain their academic and career goals. But what I'm butting my heads in is that every time I talk to them, that the for-profit school has such a negative connotation, is that, and it's a different skill set, but I'd love to somehow, if possible, get my foot back in it, especially in the area I'm in right now, which is like the Baltimore area, where there are a lot of.
So you're specifically looking at the K-12 schools.
I mean, I work for colleges.
Okay, so it is colleges. Sorry, I wasn't clear on that. So I have a contact for you. His name is Lewis Hutchinson, and if you can, let me give you my email here. If you just send me a note, because he's actually been in that space for a long time at the higher ed world.
Are you going to put it in the chat?
Yep, here's my email address. So if you send me an email, I can put you guys in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. Any start is, and any referral. That's the way it's.
That's the way it works. Absolutely. Ty?
My name's Ty Smith, customer support member services, looking in the association world. Recently, I've ventured out into other areas of looking for customer job with a lot of customer interaction, phones, web, and also in terms of the association world, member communications.
Great. Thank you, Ty. Sally?
Yes, hi. I'm Sally Cook, and I'm a medical meetings manager. I work with subject matter experts in helping to develop their committees, their educational programming. And I work through needs assessment, development, design, implementation, evaluation of the course to help improve overall patient care. One thing that I wanted to say about the association and the networking world is this week I was doing a networking or informational interview, and somebody actually gave me an association that I had never heard of before. So I went to a meeting last week and they were so excited to see me there. And then I'm going to another one next week. So that's been very helpful. That one contact was very helpful to me.
You never know. Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
Okay, Bridget.
Okay. Oh, good. Hi. Actually, I should say that my name is pronounced Brigitte, and if it's okay, because Bridget is like what I was called when I was like a kid, so that's why I didn't really address it earlier. Okay, so my background has been mostly in marketing for probably the past decade, and prior to that, it has been in journalism. I love journalism, and I appreciate marketing as well. Most of the work or my roles have been in content strategy, as well as copywriting, project management. So it's mostly project management, but for the most part, I'm making a career shift into web development. And mostly I have been focused on, like I had mentioned earlier, is a Drupal content management system. So at this time, I'm looking for jobs that are going to introduce me or bring me into the web development space. My interests in as far as industries are basically personal finance and healthcare. I also have interest in film and video production as well. But for the most part, as I'm making this transition to web development, I'm just kind of focused in on that. So the experience that aligns mostly with this has been with UX and UI work that I've recently done. And so that has involved the HTML, CSS, and Figma and things of that nature.
I would also recommend on LinkedIn that you in the search bar in the upper left-hand corner, that you type in web development Drupal, web development UI, UX. A million people, I'm not kidding, that's probably even a low number, are going to come up for you. And I would, first of all, see if you have any first level connections. And if you don't, look at your second levels and see who your first level mutual connections are, and see if you wouldn't, if some people wouldn't mind networking with you who are actually actively in that space. So beyond Meetup, you can go directly to individuals and say, hey, I'm looking to grow my skills in this space. Do you have ideas? Looking for entry level work, place I can showcase my work, tips you have, right? Like, but just talk to the people who are doing what you're doing, the more advanced level of what you're doing. So maybe they can give you some mentorship.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Alexandra.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Alexandra. And the issue that I'm sort of bumping into with my job search is that I don't really have an industry that I'm sort of married to. So most recently, I was working in behavior support, so doing one-to-one behavior support for children who have special needs in classrooms. And prior to that, I was sort of in childcare doing nannying and things like that. But my degree is in design and merchandising. So sort of started my career in the fashion industry, veered away from that, went into childcare and more of the educational support realm, doing like substitute teaching and things like that. So I have experience in marketing, production, coordination, retail, customer service. But at this point, my passion sort of lies in supporting children and families. So I've had a little bit of a winding road. My skills are pretty varied. I've been looking at different like ed tech positions. I would love to have like a remote position, sort of, supporting an organization that is supporting children and families. So that's sort of where I'm at this point.
Got it. Okay, this is good to know. If anybody has thoughts for Alexandra, I'm sure she'd welcome them. Karen?
Alexandra, let's connect offline. I know a wonderful former teacher who kind of branched out and does a number of different things, all remote. So please let's link in and I can connect you with her.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the formal portion of our call today. And so for those of you who know, after we wrap up, I'm going to stay on for a short prayer call. For those of you who want to join me for that as a spot of encouragement for all of you. Otherwise, for anybody else, we look forward to seeing you next week. And just so you know, with holidays and such, whether it's day after Thanksgiving or before New Year's, whatever, I do keep these calls going. Those on those Fridays, whatever it is. So just feel free. Every week we should be here. And once in a while, I'm not able to, and so Vern has been gracious to sub for me if I'm ever not available. But we should be here on Fridays. All right. So God bless everybody, and look forward to seeing you all next week. And feel free to stay on for the prayer call if you like.